We're here for another episode of Ask Fit and Bendy, and I have some questions from you guys about flexibility. It is a very hot day here in Los Angeles, so I'm going to have to take periodic drinks of water, but I hope that you are all staying bendy. It's perfect weather for stretching when it's this hot. So let's get into it. First question is from Livia. Hello, Livia. What stretch do I have to work on when I can do nearly anything with my legs? Lucky you. As long as one of them is bent at the knee. When it comes to straightening it out, I can't do it. Why? Usually that comes from an imbalance in the muscles in the back of the knee, right here, and the strength of the muscles right above the kneecap here. So if those muscles above the kneecap are a lot weaker than the muscles in the back of the knee, then you can end up with an imbalance where the muscles in the knee aren't strong enough to pull the back of the knee straight. So this is too tight, this is too weak, so they just get to a certain point, and then the back of the knee wins. And so the leg won't straighten all the way. So the way to correct that is to strengthen the muscles above the kneecap. So a wonderful way to start working on that is to sit with both legs straight out in front of you. This is not the ideal surface, but it would work. A harder surface would be better, just sitting on the floor in your pike stretch. And then you'll notice that there's a gap underneath your knee here where it's not getting straight, and you're just going to try to squeeze this muscle in the knee to press the back of the knee down into the floor. You can put your hand there at first, and you're going to squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze, and then relax. And squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, and relax. And at first it might feel like you're making very little progress if that muscle is weak and the rest of it is tight, but give it time, keep working on it, and it will get better. I've definitely seen people able to make a change in that particular problem. It'll also make your knees a lot healthier over the long run, so that's an added bonus. Also, if you're a runner, a lot of runners have a lot of tightness back there. Running and biking can tighten up the back of the knee. So if you're a runner or biker, do some spinning or something like that. Definitely when you are done with your workout, stretch that out, stretch the back of the knee out. And whenever you're doing your hamstring stretches, really work on engaging the knee muscle right there above the knee to straighten the leg fully. And the more that you can do that, the more it will start to correct that muscle imbalance and the leg will extend. So hopefully that helps. Let me know how it goes. For Anna Aguilar Rodriguez, what do we have for you? What are the best stretches for the back and shoulders? Not only to be in backwards, but also to raise arms straight and back. Gosh, there are so many of them, Anna. So many. And it also kind of depends on what it is you want to do and how your back is formed and stuff like that. But I will say that if you want to be able to bring your arm straight back behind you, for instance, if you're wanting to be able to reach back and grab your foot behind you, you can just work on holding the arm up over your head and pulsing it straight back. The important thing when you're doing that is to keep the shoulder down and the shoulder socket. The outside of the armpit comes forward, and to try to feel the pulse of the muscle coming from the upper back rather than from the front of the shoulder. If that is hard for you at first, it's easier sometimes to do with the arm bent. It's easier to feel those back muscles when you bend the arm, and as the arm gets more flexible and stronger, it will be able to straighten and extend back behind you. For building back flexibility, I mean, you can try either one of the Fit and Bendy DVDs. They both have back bending sections. Because that's a huge question for me to go into right now in this short Q&A. But what I recommend just in terms of if you're just starting with back bending is usually learning how to push up into a cobra, lying on your belly and pushing up. And the important thing in that is to push up a little bit at a time and try to make sure that you get the bend to happen in the upper back and not just in the lower back. So if you do it with a mirror, you want to do it sideways to the mirror and look at the curve of your spine in the mirror and notice if you're just making a straight L shape, because what you want is a nice smooth curve like an ocean wave or a bendy straw. Because that smooth curve means that you're not putting too much pressure on the lower back, the lumbar part of the spine, which tends to do most of the bending for us if we're not careful. So you really want to try to find those upper back muscles and use them to open up the chest and get the top part of the spine to bend as well as the bottom part. I'm sorry, I can't get into too much more detail, but it's kind of a huge question. But definitely check out the DVDs or the streaming videos for more detail on that. And the Bendy body one would be good if you're just starting out. Candace, hi Candace. Even after stretching, my legs feel tight when I wake up. What caused that? Well, there are a lot of things that could cause that. One of them is just, life. If you're tense, if you're stressed out and you go to sleep and you're stressed out in your sleep, you can wake up tighter in the morning. If you're dehydrated and you're not drinking enough water during the day, you can get really dehydrated at night and that can tighten you up. If you're working out a lot, your body's sore. Sometimes that can feel a lot worse in the morning. The other thing that's important to understand about stretching is that, I just landed on my nose. That's important to understand about stretching is that it's not something where like I stretch out and then the next day I still feel great and stretched out. Like you stretch out and then the next day you have to stretch out again and then the next day you stretch out again. And the progress that you make isn't necessarily measurable in that you're going to stretch out and then the next day you're like, oh yeah, and I feel like great and super bendy. The next day you might be really sore or you might be tighter even than you were the day before. The progress is made in a much more sort of long-term process where you're really going like long and slow and so you're not going to just because you stretched out one day feel bendy the next day. I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. Instead, think about every day assessing your body fresh. And the other thing that's important to note is that if you are pushing too hard and you're stretching, that could be making you extra sore. So if you're having someone like really push on you or you're going too fast into the stretches or too deep for what your body's comfortable with, that can sometimes contribute to an adverse reaction where the muscles actually tighten up because they're freaking out because you're scaring them. So that's why stretching, you always have to kind of listen to your body when you're stretching and not push it too hard. If you push it too hard, you'll actually have the opposite effect of what you want. Hope that helps. Yeah, muscle soreness and stiffness in the morning is pretty normal. I think a lot of us, I know I wake up feeling creaky and doing just some movements in the morning. I always try to get up in the morning and move and circle through all the joints, and then I feel immediately a lot better after that. But just, you've been lying still for, 4 to 10 hours, depending on your sleep habits. So your body kind of goes, tightens up. All right, let's see. Oh, Anna again, more for Anna. Sometimes I get cramps in my quads when doing up and down dogs. Is this because I'm not warmed up enough? Is it a flexibility issue? Muscle cramps can come from a lot of different things. One of them is dehydration. Water. So important to drink enough water, especially when it's hot out in the summer. Getting dehydrated. And dehydration definitely causes muscle cramps. When the muscle doesn't have enough water in it, things start to stick together, which creates this really unpleasant cramping feeling. But if you're hydrated and you're rested and you've got enough, sometimes it's the vitamin deficiency if it happens all the time. But if you're hungry, you're not hungry, you're not thirsty, you've got enough vitamins, then the other answer could be that there's something specific to those muscles in that position that's going on. It's a little difficult for me to say without knowing what your position looks like. If I could see it, maybe you can send me a picture and I'd probably be able to give you a better answer. But a lot of times muscle cramps have more to do with weakness than inflexibility. So if you think about the fact that you're asking the muscle, in that position, you're asking the quads to do some work to stabilize the legs. So it could be that those muscles in the knees that I was describing earlier need to be strengthened to try to get the legs straight without them cramping up. I'm also wondering if maybe you're getting some cramping from the hamstring or the hip flexor. I'm having a hard time answering because I don't have enough information to really give you a really great answer. But I would love to. So if you can just send me some photos and describe exactly where the cramping is happening, I might be able to give you a better answer. All right, sorry about that. For Rania, hello Rania. Is it essential to work on flexibility, strength of other areas as well, such as back, abs, and gluteals, in order to achieve front middle splits? Yes, the answer is yes. It is essential because the splits are a full body position. It's not just the hips. To really get it right, you have to be able to get the whole body involved. For instance, when you're in your front split, 1 foot front, 1 foot back, if you have weak abdominal muscles, you're going to end up collapsing into your lower back. Your pelvis is going to tilt forward. You always want to be lifting with the abs when you're in your splits, and that's going to put a lot more of the stretch into your hip. If your glutes are weak, you're not going to be able to square your splits because you won't be able to get the muscle engagement that moves the hip forward. If you're working on your middle splits, you're definitely going to need a lot of external hip strength that is tied into the obliques to be able to get some length out of the waist, so you're not slumped down in your middle splits. Also, I just always think that you should address working on your splits, your flexibility is part of your overall fitness and your body's overall health. I don't think it's good to just be like, well, I just want my splits and that's all I care about. That really runs the risk of creating imbalances in the body. I know that we're all pressed for time and energy in this crazy world that we live in. So to a certain extent, you have to pick your battles, but don't completely neglect everything else to just try to get one thing and think that the whole body is, we are one thing. Everything is connected to everything else. Everything is related to everything else. So if you're training your splits, I would definitely recommend working on the rest of your body, maybe not as much, but at least to a certain extent. Because all of those muscles do come into play if you really want it to be technically correct and perfect and you want to prevent imbalances and injuries. Linda Sanderson. I'm interested in knowledge about hip mobility. Yay. 28 years old. Can I still retrain my body? Hell yes, you can. I started training contortion when I was 30. So I have a lot of students who are older than you by quite a bit, twice as old as you, and they are still working on their flexibility and getting better and retraining their body and increasing their hip mobility. So absolutely. The thing is that as you get older, it is important to be smart about the way that you train. You can't train as if you were a small child and you just sort of bounce into things and hope that they work. So you have to be, mindful of whatever that is going on in your body and pay attention to it as you train. But absolutely, you can train your body and you can improve and have really dramatic improvements in your flexibility at 28 or 38 or 48. True. Or 58. Yeah. No, I mean, I've seen a lot of people make surprising gains. And we were all told that being adults, we couldn't start to learn this stuff. So, cool. Lindsay Harden. My legs never looked straight, even when engaged. What is the safest way to stretch behind the knees for straighter legs? Lindsay, see the earlier answer, because I would say that's the same thing. That the safest way to stretch the back of the knee is by engaging the front of the knee. You will see people sometimes in circus gyms sitting there with their foot up on something and a sandbag on top of the knee. I am not going to recommend that you do that. I don't think that that's a good idea. Knees are delicate, weird creatures. Knee injuries are prevalent. The idea of just putting a whole bunch of weight on your knee to try to force it into hyperextension sounds really unpleasant to me. So just strengthen the muscle in the kneecap. And I should mention that when you're doing that exercise, you've got your legs straight out in front of you. It's easy to feel it all the way up the quad into the hip. You don't want to try to get all this engaged up in the hip. Try to isolate the movement just to the muscles above the knee and get those stronger. And that will help to start to straighten the leg, straighten the leg, straighten the leg. But same advice for you that I gave to Livia. So work on that strengthening. And if you do any running or spinning, be sure to stretch it out really well after that. Mina, hello, Mina. Nice to hear from you. When is it appropriate to cool muscles for instance, ice them, and when is it good to warm them, like with a heating pad? I know tears are supposed to be iced right away, but if I just feel very sore, maybe a little pain, but it doesn't feel like a tear. Well, generally the rule is that ice is for swelling, and heat is to bring blood back in. So you would use ice for anything that was starting to get swollen, and heat for some place where the muscle is just really, really tired or exhausted, and you want to bring blood in to heal that muscle up. And a certain amount of this is preference. I mean, for me, after a really hard day of training, when I'm sore, I usually go for the hot bath with Epsom salts. Unless there's something that feels like I've really injured it, in which case, you know, you can usually feel, if it's swollen, you can usually put your hand on that area, you can feel it's hot and tight, and sometimes you can actually see the physical swelling. But then I know other people who really love ice baths for sore muscles. And a lot of the people that I used to train with would do that. They'd go and just like fill up a bathtub with ice cubes and jump into it. The idea of doing that makes me miserable, but you're Swedish, maybe you're into that kind of thing. It's cold up there. A thing that has been recommended to me as well, and I've tried it a couple of times, I think it works pretty well, is alternating ice and heat. Because what that does is when you put the ice on, it drives the blood away from the area, and then when you put the heat on, it brings the blood back. So it's basically flushing fresh blood into the area, and you can do that, you know, 2 or 3 times, do it in a cycle, and it can speed healing of muscles that are irritated or slightly torn. So I would recommend experimenting with what works for your body, but generally, as I said, the rule is ice is for inflammation and heat is for general repair and fatigue. But other people might tell you, you know, differently. So a lot of it is about finding what works best for you. Helen, in your opinion, what is the best type of cardio and frequency to do that won't interfere with flexibility training? I've had problems with running affecting my flexibility. Are there any cardio machines compatible with flexibility training, or should I stay off of them? Running is not good for flexibility. I am fortunate in that I hate running, so any excuse I have to not do it, I'm fine with that. But I know a lot of people love running. If you do love running and you really, really want to do it, just stretch really well afterwards to try to counteract it's sort of the repetitive high impact of running. Spinning is also really hard for flexibility because the legs never fully extend. You never fully extend through the hips. You're always kind of jugging along in this very limited range of motion. And so you build up muscle in that position. And then afterwards, you have to go and find the extension and lengthen it out. So neither of those things are perfect if you can avoid doing them. What I like to do for cardio is high intensity interval training. I think dance is great. Basically stuff that gets your body moving in a whole different variety of ways. So rather than doing one movement over and over, you do lots of movements, all different kinds of movements. And even if some of that is high impact, like I like to do plyo, you know, jumping on and off stuff and stuff like that. But I will do like short, intense bursts of plyo interspersed with like high kicks and, you know, burpees and stuff like that. And because you're always changing movement up, you don't have the muscles getting tighter and tighter and tighter in this limited range of motion in just one particular way. So that's generally what I recommend when people ask me about cardio. As for frequency, you know, the studies say 3 days a week for cardio is good. You can maybe do it 4. You can even do it more if you want to, but I think that, you know, doing a variety of stuff, so cardio and strength and flexibility, and kind of always, you know, having a certain amount of variety in your workout throughout the week is really important. So maybe if you train cardio 3 days a week and then on other days you do flexibility and strength, that would be a good way to put it together. But the fewer repetitive movements you can do just in general in life, like when we do too much of one thing, sitting right now, sitting's the worst. Sitting is the worst. Like we spend way too much time sitting on our butts. and it tightens up the hips, it tightens up the lower back, it tends to make us sit like this, so we have bad posture. So the more that you can just keep your body moving and vary the ways that you move, that will really help your flexibility training and just keeping your body gooey. For Eleanor, when should you start practicing oversplit? Would it be helpful in getting my leg completely straight, or is there something else I should do? And she wants to add a frown emoticon, but didn't know how to do it. Emoticons are challenging too, and I'm afraid I'm not very good with emoticons. There's probably a Q&A on emoticons somewhere out there, but it's not mine. Okay, so I recommend starting on oversplit when you're about this far off the floor. So maybe 2 to 3 inches, 5-6 centimeters off the floor. And it can help you get that last little bit to get your booty, you know, solid on the floor. The oversplit is also helpful if you're someone who has difficulty squaring splits. I have a hard time squaring my splits flat on the floor because my butt cheek gets in the way of back leg. But if I raise my hips up a little bit, and there's a little easier for me to square, to fully move that back hip forward into line. So oversplits are good for that. For middle splits, especially if you're in that position where you're just slightly tented and you can't get that last little bit down, going into oversplit can be super helpful to get that last flat on the floor, couple of inches. If you try oversplit and it hurts too much, you know, go back to doing regular splits and try adding in some strengthening stuff. So you can lie on your back with your butt on a yoga block and do active splits. You can do PNF and split, so you sit in a split, you press the floor, and then try to go deeper. And those will build up the muscles that sort of support your body in that position, so that when you go back to oversplits later and try it again, it will be easier on your body because you'll have more muscle to support the position. A lot of the pain comes from weakness and from the body just kind of sinking in to places that it doesn't want to go or aren't right for it. So you have to have the muscle there to support it. And that would be my one cautionary note about trying oversplits if you're close to the floor but not quite there. But yeah, those are the things that I would recommend to work on to just get that last little bit. For Sherry Berg. First of all, I love your videos. Oh, thank you. Second, my question. If I have less than 30 minutes to stretch, what are the best things to do to continue improving my flexibility? That's a very personal question because I think it is different for different people. Different people need different things. I know I always need to stretch my hip flexors every day because those puppies tighten up if I don't flex them every day. They just get really, really cranky. That's my area. Some people have a lot of tightness in the lower back, so working on lower back and side bending is going to be an important thing to do every day. Some people need to do shoulders or neck every day because that's where they like to carry their tension. I would say you would want to find the spots in your body that are most resistant to stretching and will go back fast if you stop working on them, and do those as regularly as possible. That said, if that area is back bending, I don't recommend doing back bending if you haven't also warmed up your hips and shoulders. And usually you need at least 45 minutes to an hour if you're going to do a really good back bending session, because you've got to do the whole hips and then the whole shoulders and then back. So if you're going to have a short session, I wouldn't recommend going deep into back bending. You know, some light back bending is fine, and some upper back and shoulders, but to go really deep into back bending, there's some preparation that has to happen, and that takes some time. But you can stretch out hips, you can stretch out hamstrings, shoulders, rotational, side bending, get the neck warmed up and gooey. Whatever it is that your body feels like it craves on a regular basis is what I would focus on. And you kind of go through your repertoire of available stretches, things that you like to do, and plan out the ones that you feel are most important. Calves are a really good one to do super regularly because those get tight on a lot of us, especially if you're a lady who likes to wear shoes. That can really tighten things up. If you want more specifics, please do let me know more about you and sort of what you're working on and what's hard for you and stuff like that, and then I can give you some more specific ideas. I somehow erased your name. Someone's sending me greetings from Athens, and when I printed this out, I erased your name. I'm so sorry, but I can't wait to see you in Athens. I can't wait to come to Athens again. I love Athens. What exercises do you consider best for active back flexibility? We can't wait to train with you. I can't wait to train with you guys too. So active back flexibility, I have two answers for you. One is that if you're talking about, being able to go over backwards safely, really when you're thinking about back bending, it's actually front stretching rather than back stretching, right? Because your back is compressing, your front is extending, and a lot of the support and strength comes from your core. So getting strong through your abs. And that doesn't necessarily mean crunches, because crunches will make you strong going forward, but you need to be strong going backward. So just working on standing up straight and starting to go over backwards without collapsing into your back, feeling the lift in the chest, and how much as you go over backwards, you have to be supported from the lower abs. That core right below your belly button, right here, is really where some of the most important strength comes from for back bending. Another spot that really is very, very supportive for the back is the downstairs butt. It's right underneath. It's not the big gluteal muscle, the big one. It's just right underneath it. It's where the hamstring attaches underneath the butt cheek. And that spot is very important to help support the pelvis so that your butt doesn't tilt back behind you as you're going into your back bending. So the lower abs and the downstairs butt work to hold your lower back in place as you go into a back bend so that you don't get that collapsing into the lower back. So that's answer number one. Answer number two is if you're talking about the strength of, for instance, be lying down on your face on the ground, be able to lift up and reach back and grab your feet. Or if you're an aerialist and you want to be able to arch back up and grab something. And so that kind of back strength and active flexibility. Supermans are one that everybody does, where you lie down on your belly and just lift your body up. The important thing to keep in mind if you're doing Supermans is that it's very easy to just crank, 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 crank on your lower back right here. So it is important to do, even if you do some sets where you come all the way up, it's also important to find sets where you keep your pelvis tucked and just try to lift the upper body and try to feel the upper back muscles working as well as the lower back. And you can do them with the arms out to the side, which is a little bit less weight. And so it makes it a little bit easier to just try to isolate and really feel those upper back muscles. And then you can also do them where you keep your upper body down, turn your knees out into like a long butterfly position, and try to lift your legs up off the ground, lift your hips up off the ground. So that's going to definitely get into the lower back, as well as the glutes and that downstairs butt muscle that I was talking about. But hopefully if you turn out a little bit and get the knees out to the side, sometimes that can help to open up the hips and keep the lower back somewhat more protected. That said, if you're starting to get a lot of pain in your lower back doing those exercises, take a step back and take a look at your technique and make sure you're not only using your lower back muscles. You want to try to get the entire spine as well as your butt and your downstairs butt all working to lift the body up. So those are the two things that you can do to improve active back flexibility. Antranik, hi, how are you? Great to see you. Good question you have. He likes to do a wall stretch for his hip flexors, the one where you're in a lunge with your shin bone up against the wall. And ever since I had a partner help push me into extension, I feel I can't go deeper in the stretch anymore by myself, no matter how hard I flex my glutes and tuck the pelvis and all that jazz. Good dog. I was wondering, how could I go deeper without the help of a partner? I was thinking maybe I could deepen the stretch for the hip flexors by raising the front foot, or it'd be better to raise the back knee. Never tried, and I was always curious. So I have a couple of answers. It's a really interesting question. And I think that if you have the experience of having someone push on your stretches, especially if they're stretches like hip flexors, right? Hip flexors on most of us are notoriously tight, 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 tight muscles. And sometimes it feels like you're trying to stretch them and you're trying to stretch them and you make no progress. And then someone comes along and pushes on them and it's like this, finally it's lengthening. It finally starts to feel better and open up. It feels so much better. It's kind of impossible to get that same feeling from anything else other than someone pushing on you. But I will say this, having someone pushing on you a stretch can be a wonderful experience, but it can't be the only way that you stretch. And this is the reason that studies have shown, scientific studies have shown that if you stretch a muscle with a hard, fast force, a pushing force, like if I take your leg and I push it into place, I will get you to go further, faster, because of that amount of fast force. However, that gain that you have made will not last as long as if you went slower and softer into that same stretch. So let's say this is your leg and I'm trying to get it to stretch this direction. I could come and push on your leg and we could make it go and get all the way to here. And you would be super happy because your leg would be all the way over here and it would feel like this like super deep, crazy stretch. But then the muscle would go and it might really only make a real gain of just a teeny little amount. So like the next day you go back to it and it wouldn't really move anymore. Like the length of the muscle wouldn't really have changed very much. You would just have had that moment of it feeling like it changed. But if you're doing a stretch where you're using your muscles, like engaging your glutes or engaging the other muscles, and there's some amount of passive stretch, but it's not that heavy push. And let's say you only go to here, your body will retain more of that length. So instead of going back almost to square one, it will go back less. So it will take longer and it won't have that same sort of dramatic satisfaction that you get from having someone push on you. And I'm not saying it's bad to have someone push on you. Sometimes just showing your body that it can go to here, even with help, can be good for your nervous system and good for your mental state and can feel really good. But I know you're telling me that you're trying it and it feels like you're making no progress. I'm willing to bet that you are making some progress. It's just not fast enough progress or dramatic enough progress to make you happy. It might be just a teeny amount of progress. So my main thing to say to you is to be patient with it. Hip flexors are tight muscles. They are. Also, when I was looking at your photo, I noticed that maybe you could use your abs a little bit more to tuck your pelvis, and that the strength of lifting the abs combined with the pushing from the downstairs butt will help to open that up. You can also add some PNF. So that would work in that stretch by pressing the top of the foot back against the wall. So you have your back shin up against the wall. And as you sink deeper into the stretch, you would press the top of your foot to the wall for 3 seconds and then relax and try to sink deeper. Do that 2 to 3 times on each side. Sometimes that can help the muscle kind of chill out a little bit and allow a little bit more range of motion. You can put your back knee up on something. You can put your front foot up too, but I would say it would be more helpful, like if you took a foam roller and put it under your back knee while your shin was up against the wall. But I don't think that's the main problem. I think the problem is that you got really hooked on that feeling of like going so dramatically deep into the stretch. And you're just not gonna, that's the feeling of being pushed on, and it doesn't come from anything else. But just because you're not feeling the same sort of drama from your stretching without the physical push doesn't mean that you're not making results or doing something that's good for you or making headway. It's very important to do both kinds of stretching. So that's all for today. I really hope this was helpful, you guys. I'm going to start doing these more often for the month of August before I head off to Vegas and then Europe for a month and a half. But so if you have any questions during August, feel free to post them. I'm going to be keeping up regular posts on the Worldwide Splits Challenge. So if you're part of that, you can find me there. You can post questions on the Fit and Bendy Facebook page. And you can tag photos on Instagram with hashtag AskFitAndBendy, and I will find all of those. So have a wonderful, hot, sweaty Monday night. Hopefully you're hot and sweaty wherever you are, and I will talk to you soon.